Let's be honest. People will go to extraordinary lengths, often absurd ones, just to avoid confronting one uncomfortable truth themselves. The soul is such a terrifying mirror that most would rather run, numb, or distract themselves than truly face it. Carl Jung knew this. And you've been deceived not by a clear enemy, but by the culture you live in. The media, the stories you've absorbed. Even worse, by your own instincts that were never refined, just lulled to sleep by comfort and convenience. You assume aging equals maturity. You believe that a woman's appearance somehow guarantees emotional growth. But here's the hard truth. Many women never actually grow up, not in body, but in mind and emotion. That's not an insult. It's a reality too few are willing to say aloud. Jung warned us long before the world was willing to hear it. While men are taught how to become providers, protectors, and pillars of strength, no one ever handed you the blueprint for dealing with a woman who remains, at her core, a girl cloaked in adulthood. And if you're being honest, you've sensed it. You've noticed the dreamy indecision, the emotional dependency hidden behind charm. The sudden eruptions of feeling that twist situations until you are the villain simply because you failed to play the savior she unconsciously craves. You might have chalked it up to emotional wounds or youthful immaturity. But Jung had a name for it: Quella Eterna, the eternal girl, a woman psychologically stuck in childhood. She lives in a fantasy where life stays soft, romantic, and effortless so long as someone else carries the burden. You've been with her. You tried to support her. Maybe you even married her, but every time, you felt like you were walking beside a child, one who refused to grow up and walk with you as an equal. Jung didn't stumble upon this idea; it was the result of deep psychological observation. While boys often resist maturity through rebellion, girls frequently escape into dreams, emotions, and dependency. She doesn't confront life, she flutters around it. She doesn't heal, she waits for a rescuer. And if you're nodding right now, you've likely paid the price. The confusion, the guilt, the emotional drain. Being the man in a relationship where everything looks fine on the surface but feels hollow at its core. And no one warned you, not your father, not your teachers, not the online relationship experts. They gave you strategies, but not the truth. The truth is simple. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. Carl Jung taught that real maturity isn't measured by age, it's defined by one's ability to integrate the conscious and unconscious, to take full responsibility for oneself, and to face discomfort head-on. The eternal girl stands in opposition to all of that. She clings to innocence because the real world requires something she's never developed: a solid inner foundation. You've seen it. Her avoidance of real decisions, her blame games, her constant chase for the next thrill, be it a new passion, job, or relationship. She's always in motion, never rooted. Always searching, never building. What looks like confusion is often a psychological defense. She is running from the path Jung called individuation, the painful but essential journey to becoming whole. And this is what tortures you. You don't realize it's happening. You keep mistaking the pattern for love. You assume it's your duty to fix it. And in doing so, you lose yourself. Because when a man stands beside a forever girl, he is not just supporting her, he is shrinking himself. He is silencing his needs. He is managing her chaos. He is trading his strength for the illusion of harmony, and he tells himself it's noble. But in truth, it's quiet surrender. When you take on her storms, trying to calm what she refuses to face, you believe it's love. But really, you've abandoned your center. You've stepped into her shadow, a place that was never yours to inhabit. Jung warned clearly. What you do not bring to consciousness appears in your life as fate. And that's exactly what happens. The cycle repeats. You find yourself drawn to the same kind of woman again and again. The spark is intense, the emotional high euphoric, until you're left drained, disoriented, and questioning your worth. Why? Because you keep trying to build something permanent with someone who has no internal structure to support it. Quella Eterna isn't just young at heart, she is psychologically hollow. She resists accountability, she avoids maturity. And tragically, today's culture applauds it. Social media celebrates the whimsical, carefree woman who never seems touched by the weight of real life. But that's just the persona, what Jung called the compromise between who you truly are and who the world expects you to be. For the eternal girl, the persona isn't just a mask, it's everything. Underneath, nothing has been built. And you, the grounded, good man, step in, thinking you can stabilize her. But that was never your role. You were never taught to see that her fear of adulthood wears the costume of freedom, that her fear of responsibility masquerades as individuality, that her refusal to commit is rebranded as exploring options. The truth is, the Puella Eterna lives in a suspended reality, forever idealizing potential, while avoiding the consequences that come with it. She yearns for the benefits of adulthood, yet refuses to pay the emotional cost. She desires deep connection, but recoils at the responsibilities it demands. She says she wants a real man, but when he finally arrives, she withdraws in fear, because a real man is seeking a real woman, not a girl behind a facade, not someone who never learned how to stand alone. And here's what stings the most. You don't feel guilty because you mistreated her. You feel guilty because you stayed too long, too forgiving, too blind. You watched her avoid depth, deflect blame, and sidestep maturity, but you still called it love. Jung would call this projection. You didn't see her for who she was. You saw her through the lens of your own depth. You assigned meaning to her chaos. You interpreted her need to be rescued as intimacy. But that wasn't love, it was two unconscious shadows colliding. Jung once said, the unconscious is always seeking balance, which means if one person refuses to grow, the other will start growing for both. And that's what happened. You became the therapist, the father, the emotional caretaker. You gave up your peace just to keep something alive that never truly had roots. Here's the hard truth Jung wanted men to face. If she hasn't confronted her own shadow, her fears, wounds, and disowned traits, then those burdens fall on you. And eventually, they will break you. That's why so many men walk away from these relationships not just broken but depleted, hollowed out, because they spent years pouring into someone who had no intention of ever standing up on her own. She stayed clinging to youth, illusion, and the comfort of letting someone else be the adult. You didn't stay because you lacked strength. You stayed because no one ever showed you the alternative. But now, you know better, the illusion is broken. And the question isn't, why won't she grow up? It's, why do I keep choosing people who refuse to? Jung believed real growth begins the moment we confront the parts of ourselves we've always avoided. For women, that means reclaiming their shadow, ambition, anger, independence, all the things culture taught them to suppress in order to seem feminine. But maturity demands wholeness, not performance. For men, the turning point is clarity. No more confusing emotional chaos with passion. No more mistaking helplessness for vulnerability. And most of all, no more being intoxicated by the fantasy of being needed. You wanted to be her savior, and in doing so, you abandoned yourself. But you were never meant to rescue anyone. You were meant to lead, beginning with your own life. Not with force or control, but with discernment, with awareness, with presence, with the courage to walk away from what isn't real. Jung taught, a man who hasn't made peace with his inner feminine will be ruled by it in the outer world. That's the tragedy so many men live. When they avoid their own emotional work, they attract women who reflect their unhealed wounds, neediness, chaos, the hunger for affirmation. And soon, their identity becomes centered around helping her. But an anchor tied to a sinking ship doesn't hold anything in place, it simply goes down with it. You weren't born to drown in someone else's unfinished childhood. You were born to lead the way out, but because you didn't yet understand, you made excuses for her. She's figuring it out. She's been through a lot. She's just not ready. And maybe all of that's true, but it doesn't change the deeper truth. She chooses not to grow. She clings to fantasy. She wants comfort, not transformation. And like many men, you mistook that for femininity. But real feminine energy is not delicate or dependent, it is powerful, focused, deeply creative. When a woman has integrated her full self, her femininity is not passive, it's fierce. The Puella Eterna has none of that. She only has two tools, performance and projection. And if you stay long enough, those tools will drain your masculinity, your direction, your spirit, until you barely recognize yourself. But it doesn't have to end there. Jung didn't just expose the pattern, he offered the path forward. Individuation, the process of becoming whole. And for men, it begins with true power, not brute strength, not control, but the kind of insight that allows you to spot the pattern before you fall into it. The kind of discernment that helps you recognize when you're being pulled into someone else's unresolved childhood. The kind of inner strength that knows when to say no to what is not yours to carry. And above all, the kind of strength that allows you to walk away not from bitterness, but from truth. Because once you finally see the Puella Eterna clearly, the illusion loses its grip. She's not an angel, not a soulmate, not a mystery to fix. She is a woman who has never met herself, who has never integrated her shadow, who has never stepped into womanhood in its full, powerful form. And once you understand that everything changes, and once you truly see her for what she is, something shifts, the illusion cracks, the guilt fades, and for the first time in years, you feel something unfamiliar: freedom. If this is your first encounter with these truths, don't resist it. Don't run from the sting. Let it awaken you, not to shame you, but to shake you out of sleep. Because if you've spent years in relationships with emotionally stunted women, the real tragedy is this: you've spent years asleep in your own life. You were trained to chase beauty, not depth. Conditioned to seek chemistry instead of real compatibility. You were never taught to spot psychological immaturity hiding behind charm and glamour. But now you see it. Now you know. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you will never become that man as long as you keep orbiting around women who haven't even begun the journey of becoming themselves. You can't build a future with someone who is still running from the present. It doesn't matter how beautiful she looks, how sweet she sounds, or how intense your connection feels. She will drain your energy, your direction, your mission. And she won't even realize she's doing it, because she's still waiting for someone else to write her story. But that's not your role. Your purpose is to write your own. And now, finally, you can. Because once you recognize the pattern, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice it everywhere. You see how she avoids accountability but expects unwavering loyalty. How she craves constant validation but resists commitment. How she plays the part of a grown woman but never lives as one. And you stop. You stop making excuses. Stop falling for potential. Stop mistaking emotional chaos for passion. Because that isn't love. That's dependency wrapped in recycled drama. Jung didn't give us these archetypes to shame anyone. He gave them to help us see, to recognize ourselves inside the madness, and then to step out of it. Pain is the alarm clock. And once you've been woken up, you won't walk blindly into those same traps again. You won't be the man who gets drained by women still stuck in their own unfinished stories. You'll be the man who writes his own, the man with vision, the man with standards, the man who sees clearly. And one day, when you meet a woman who has met herself, who has done her shadow work, who stands rooted in her own being, you'll realize something powerful. She doesn't need you. She chooses you. And that's the only kind of woman worthy of your presence, your energy, your heart. If these words strike a chord, don't keep them to yourself. Share them. Pass them on to another man who's still stumbling in the dark. Because this isn't some corny self-help video. This is the truth you were never given. And now here it is. There are no more excuses. Let this be the final moment you stay blind. Let this be the first moment you truly grow up.